to...
Welcome to all with us tonight in the gallery and to our online viewers to the 8th of May 2023 Council meeting. I open the meeting at 7 p.m. I will now pass you on to the Chief Executive Officer, Ms Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome all. This is an ordinary meeting of Council and my name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the provision of Council's governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website page and Facebook pages. The live stream is not interactive. Any comments or private messages directed to us while the stream is live will not be presented to the Council group or have any bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow participation of our residents without having to attend the meetings in person. I'll just take you through some rules of our participation. Please note that any public questions submitted to tonight's Council meeting will be read out by a member of our Executive Leadership team and a verbal response will be provided. Questions and responses will also be included in the meeting minutes following tonight's meeting. Council does not accept questions as part of its request to speak process. No statement may be derogatory, defamatory or directed to an individual councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit does apply to all requests to speak items. The timer will be used and a warning sound will sound at the 1.5 minute mark. To give you a warning to sum up, and if officers are indeed reading out, they will sum up for the last 30 seconds. We ask that members of the gallery please check their phones to ensure that it's either switched off or on silent to avoid any disruptions tonight. I would also ask in advance of any members of the public gallery that may depart before the meeting is finished, that we ask you to please not hold conversations just outside the door. It does actually come into the room and impact on our live stream, so I thank you in advance for that. I will now introduce you to the councillors that are in attendance tonight. I will start to my left. I have the Deputy Mayor Councillor Alida McKern, Councillor Tom Melican and Councillor Alison Champion. And to my right, I have the Mayor, Councillor Peter Castaldo, Councillor Fiona Mitsonikos, Councillor Elizabeth Neely and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. This evening we're also joined by Council's executive team. I have Natasha Swan, Director of City Development, Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services, Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services and Kath Brackett, Director of Community Wellbeing. Also joining the councillors tonight are our support team, which includes members of the governance team, IT team and our JETS team who are coordinating our live stream for tonight's meeting. Thank you for participating and joining us tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Tonight our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri people. And on behalf of Banyule City Council, I wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay respects to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders past, present and emerging, and to acknowledge any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders present this evening. And Council is committed to and values diversity within our community. I will now read Banyule's diversity statement that demonstrates our commitment. Our community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and rights for everyone. Principles which empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. First up, we have some apologies. We'll be noting that we have an apology from Councillor Peter Demoros, who is on council-granted leave of absence and will not be present this evening. And also Councillor Rick Garotti is also an apology for this evening's meeting. There are no other apologies. Next, we move on to confirmation of minutes for the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 17th of April 2023. Can I please have a councillor to move and second? Mover, Councillor Melican, seconded by Councillor McKern. I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We next move on to disclosures of interest. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of a meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. At any point throughout the meeting, if any other council recognises that they have a general or material interest, they can flag that at the point and follow the same procedure. Are there any disclosures of interest? There are no disclosures. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council this evening. No, there are no disclosures of interest. I note there is no urgent business this evening as well. We are now moving on to the item number 2.1, petitions. Request to have traffic measures put into place along Gloucester Drive in Heidelberg. We have 6 speakers on this item this evening. Before I introduce the speakers, I'd also like to highlight the streets that the signatories were received from, as we did this with the previous petition. Gloucester Drive, 92 signatories. Macaulay Drive, 1 signatory. Anthony Court, 2 signatories. Graham Road, 1 signatory. Berkeley Avenue, 2 signatories. Talbot Avenue, 2 signatories. Rhondda Street, 2. And Bristol Street, 6. With that, we'll now move on to those speaking tonight. First up is Gary Ross, will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Gary, can you please approach the lectern? You have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, get started. All right, firstly, thank you for the opportunity to address the council tonight. Our petition of over 100 local residents has raised some real concerns regarding lack of evidence-based decision-making and the consultation process. The key concerns are that the February 6 council decision to not proceed with the permanent closure is inconsistent with the original traffic data and advice in the engineer's report. Petitioners overwhelmingly support retention of the existing traffic measures currently in place. We're now well into the second year of the road closure, and reopening has important implications for the safety of all residents, young and old, including those in adjoining streets. Since closure, there's been a significant increase in the number of locals utilising the safer access now provided to River Gum Walk. These include school students, those using it for exercise and enjoyment, cyclists, joggers, walkers, etc. Whoa, 2 minutes. Okay, so another concern expressed by petitioners is that the community consultation, a 1-page traffic and transport survey, was essentially a Hobson's choice. We're of the view that the 3-speed hump proposal involving expenditure of $60,000 to fix a problem which, according to the engineer's report, doesn't exist, does not adequately address the safety concerns of residents. Furthermore, petitioners believe that the proposed location and spacing of the speed humps will encourage rat running. They worry that safety of residents will be further compromised by there being no proposals for additional traffic calming measures to address the blind spots. Bristol Street, where it joins Gloucester Drive, and the corner of Buckingham Drive and Gloucester Drive. Accordingly, we seek more direct engagement of residents with council regarding the traffic measures to be put in place. We call upon the council to follow the safety first principle and delay commencement of the implementation. Additional consultation to achieve a positive outcome is in everyone's interests. to avoid the issue spilling over into 2024. Okay.
Next up, we have Richard Webb, will address council in person and is speaking against the recommendation. Richard, can you please approach the lectern? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, councillors. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for your time in listening to our concerns today, considering our previous petition and resolving not to close Gloucester Road and Bristol Street at the meeting on 6th of February. I'm here to speak against the elements of this counter-petition seeking to reverse your decision. As previously highlighted through our original petition against this trial, the negative consequences and impacts that the closure had on our local estate far outweighed the benefits gained by a single street, particularly when those benefits could be achieved through less extreme measures, such as speed humps. We have said all along that this is not an us versus them situation. They are our neighbours and we are their neighbours. We have been seeking a fair and equitable solution that benefits all of us in our small estate, so that all roads can carry traffic safely. So whilst we strongly oppose the council in reversing its previous decision, it is heartening to see that another element of the counter-petition is in favour of having speed humps instead. In the spirit of finding a solution that works for all of us, we fully support our neighbours in point 3 of their petition in seeking an equal number of speed humps as Berkeley Avenue. We understand that there are many factors that the council's experts consider when determining the number and placement of speed humps. But if it is possible to ensure parity in the number of speed humps per length of road, we think this should be considered by the experts. We would appreciate a clear plan be provided to everyone in our local estate that establishes when the temporary closure will be removed and when the new traffic calming measures are to be installed. Thank you again for listening to the community in resolving these issues, and we hope that you can consider providing Gloucester Drive with the additional speed humps that they are seeking.
Thank you. Next up, we have John Buddery, will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor and fellow councillors. I've lived in Gloucester Drive for 20 years, and I've seen that Banyule Council is a competent council. Compared with many other councils around, a reputation for quiet competency. So I was a bit blindsided by this whole thing, I'm afraid. That suddenly out of nowhere what had been a quiet street became a busy street. It was held a consultation to say, okay, because we're unhappy residents, people came along, listened to us, and as I understand, traffic engineers' proposal was put in. There are obviously other unhappy residents, so that's a real issue. And then suddenly out of nowhere came 3 speed humps to be built in Gloucester Drive, which, as the person for the negative said, is different from in the same section of Berkeley. So where this 3 came from, it was really surprised me because I've seen Banyule Council and it's got a reputation for competence, and basically I couldn't understand why it needed to be 3. In fact, what we're really seeking, and some organisations, when things are difficult, they just keep going. But sometimes it's better to say, actually, we've gone so far, but there's an issue here. Let's take a pause. Let's actually consult. Let's actually see what will meet the needs of the whole estate and not just rush ahead with a solution, because where will it end? We keep just responding quickly and putting things around, and there's speed humps here and there. Will Buckingham be affected? What happens with the traffic? I don't know. There's a real risk to me of a lot more unhappy residents if the council just proceeds with this direct thing. I have to confess, I feel a bit railroaded by the whole thing. I was very surprised, and I would really appreciate it if council could consider where things are going, take proper matters into account, and provide us with a safe and efficient solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mark Gulano, will address council in person and it will be speaking against the recommendation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. The residents of this estate reject the submission of the petition to overturn the 6/2/23 council meeting decision. The basis for this rejection is that a full analysis has yet to be completed as per what was considered originally. Firstly, the through traffic versus the residential traffic of the entire estate has still yet to be conducted. Secondly, consultation of residents of all adjoining streets has been sort of non-existent, other than an explanation of a letter that it says what is going to be in place and what the decision was on the 6th of the 2nd, 2023. No communication has been awarded to all of the estate residents. And thirdly, all the residents want an outcome that is considered for all the residents in the estate and what is the best compromise for all of these parties. What we are seeking is a fair, equitable outcome that allows for all the local road network to function safely and for all of the estate, and does not prioritise or favour one group unfairly, or favour the residents of one street at the expense of others within the estate. We believe an appropriate outcome can be reached working together as a whole estate, where the local roads in the estate can continue to carry traffic safely and without undue reduction to amenities of any street. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Chris, who has submitted a written request to speak for the recommendation, and it will be read out by Director of Corporate Services, Mark Giulio. The same time limit applies to you too.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I want to express my disappointment at the decision by Council on the 6th of February not to progress with the permanent closure of Bristol Street. This was despite 91% of households in Gloucester Drive and Bristol Street who were directly impacted by rat runners supporting the permanent closure. Council's own engineers supported it based on their own analysis and the data that traffic has now been dispersed. The petition presented against the permanent closure on the 6th of February contained multiple signatures per household, including streets that were not impacted by traffic, like the residents of Gloucester Drive and Bristol Street. The totals presented against the closure versus those for were misrepresented by speakers by comparing totals on the petition versus the one form per household survey provided to residents of Gloucester Drive and Bristol Street. The subsequent survey form provided to residents of Gloucester Drive and Bristol Street regarding the installation of speed humps was unsatisfactory, as the only choice was either 1, none, or 2, 3 speed humps. The number of speed humps proposed is 1 less than the equivalent parallel section of Berkeley Avenue. It should be 4 as a minimum. It does not provide for traffic calming measures on the corner of Buckingham Drive and Gloucester Drive, the sharp bend on Gloucester and Bristol, and the intersection of Bristol and Berkeley. Rat runners regularly cut corners at these 3 points. It has been great to see the increase in the numbers of school kids, cyclists, dog walkers and others since the road closure as a safer alternative. I trust that Council will make the right decision and improve the safety of these streets for everyone.
Thank you. And the last speaker this evening is Murray Spanga. Will speak against Council in person on behalf of Berkeley Avenue residents, and speaking against the recommendation. You've got 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. I'd like to start by thanking you for your support in opposing the permanent closure of Bristol Street back in February at the Council meeting. In relation to the new petition, I just want to mention that we strongly oppose to the parts of this new petition that requests Council to reverse its decision to reopen Bristol Street. However, we do support the part of this new petition that seeks speed humps in place of the closure and think that Gloucester Drive should be treated equally where possible by installing the same number of speed humps as Berkeley Avenue. We would like to hear from Council on the time frame for removing the trial closure and installing alternative traffic measures as soon as possible. We are concerned that by continuing the temporary closure, it becomes a de facto permanent closure if it is never removed. We also encourage Council and its experts to consider whether other traffic calming measures can be implemented for all our benefit, which would reduce the rat running through our little pocket of the estate. One suggestion is whether signage could be placed on Beverley Road and Banyule Road, which are the two entry and exit points to our estate, that would limit the volume of traffic to local traffic only and restricts turning from certain directions during, say, certain peak times. Our estate is grateful for Council listening to our concerns and supporting us in finding solutions and outcomes that strikes a fair balance for us all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We've now had the maximum number of speakers to this item. It's very important to a lot of people in our community. Next up, now, councillors, there is an officer's report before you as set out in the agenda papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover? Moved. Councillor Mitsonikos, seconded. Councillor Champion. As mover, do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to thank all those who put together the petition and for all of the speakers tonight, both for and against. I actually just have two questions for the Director of City Development. And they are, where are we at with the consultation, and why 3 speed humps and not 4, as a lot of the speakers have talked about tonight? Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So the consultation only very recently finished and we're in the process of compiling the results. We anticipate that we'll be back out writing to local residents with the outcomes of that very shortly. In terms of the question of why 3 and not 4, whilst we understand that there's similarities in the road length, speed humps have to be designed in order to fit between crossing points, ideally located beneath streetlights so that they're nice and visible. So it's not always the case that you would end up replicating the same layout and arrangement of speed humps from one street to the other, because each of them have their own differences. What we are confident is that the 3 speed humps that are proposed in the consultation plan can be delivered and comply with relevant engineering standards, which is very important in making sure that it's safe. And we have understood concerns around the turning of the corners within the street, and that's something that a speed hump isn't going to be able to resolve. That's around the line marking and potential people complying with the road rules, obviously, and not crossing over. Thanks.
Thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak to the item? Any other councillor? Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just thank you very much to our speakers and also the residents of all these streets who have spoken to us numerous occasions on various council meetings in the past. Look, I think at this stage tonight, I'm quite comfortable to be taking the petition, to be allowing the officers to go through the consultation as well, and to add it to the, to the data that we have. So I'm more than happy to take on this petition tonight for further investigation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Another councillor? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wish to speak, to thank all the speakers, the 6 speakers this evening. I think you've put a lot of effort into your presentations. I don't think it's ever easy looking at speed and safety control measures for our streets. However, it's a vital function of council. You've all raised important issues, particularly those issues that are ringing in my ears are around safety. I did receive a call from the primary petitioner who explained to me how there are motorists on the street whose cars are being sideswiped. It can be difficult for residents crossing the road as well as motorists travelling through the street. Obviously, council has an obligation to address those concerns. I do, however, from a urban design point of view, have difficulty with reducing permeability of our streets. I liken diverting traffic from one street to another a bit like water through a hose. You block it at one point, it has to get out somewhere else, so you're diverting it somewhere else. So we need to be careful in any diversion of traffic that it's not going to simply cause problems in adjoining streets. I think that there has been a lot of effort placed into this exercise to date. I will be interested to see, Mr Mayor, the outcome of the consultation that was promised at council meeting on the 6th of February, and overall am looking forward to a traffic solution that, as been said by one of the speakers, provides an outcome that is balanced and fair for all, and a road network to function safely for all residents of the estate. So I accept this petition with interest. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillors? Councillor Melican?
Thank you. Yes, I remember the previous evening when this was discussed, one of the Berkeley Road speakers said that they thought they'd been denied natural justice because they'd never been consulted on the permanent closure. And through this resolution tonight and our previous resolution, we're not going to provide anyone the opportunity to have a say on the permanent closure. And the other thing that upsets me about this is we've allocated $60,000 to put in 3 speed humps to a street that has no traffic congestion problems or volumes problems and no speed problems. But we're allocating $60,000 to fix a street that has no problems. And we always need to base our decisions on what experts tell us, and the experts told us the permanent closure had worked. We need to work on what's going to cost the most, and the permanent closure was significantly less than the speed humps. We need to think about the safety issues, and we need to think about the amenity issues. And I'm really afraid that this process has divided residents because none of the residents have had the opportunity to be consulted on the permanent closure, and they're never going to get that opportunity. Surely the sensible thing would be proceed with, and as we learnt in the last meeting, the motion to proceed with the permanent closure wasn't to close it, it was to consult with the wider area, exactly what all the residents have been requesting. So I'm afraid that that's never going to happen. So what we've now done is we've given Gloucester Street residents the opportunity to speed humps or nothing. That's their options. So of course they're going to pick the speed humps, but is that the best outcome? Well, according to the traffic engineers, no, it's not. So the pity of this whole process is we've denied everyone access or everyone the opportunity to consult about the permanent closure. We've picked a solution because we think it's the most popular solution. Clearly it might not be, or it may be, but as councillors, our role is to pick what's right, what's the correct thing to do, not what we think is the most popular, and I'm afraid we haven't done that tonight.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone else that wish to speak? No. With that, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to item 3.1, Banyule City Council position on MAV State Council motions. I might just take a moment to let some of the audience make their way out. Thank you. Now, there are no speakers to this item this evening. Councillors, there is an officer report before you set out in the agenda papers, but I believe there is an amended recommendation. Do we have a mover?
I'll move with those slight recommendations that motion C3, motions 30 and motion 31, that council supports those motions at the MAV State Conference on the 19th of May. Attachment point 2 with amendments to the following motions that council has determined to not support. No, that should be to support, not.
Doesn't support?
Does support.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't.
No, we do support those motions.
No, motion 2.
Those motions. Oh, sorry.
We're just amending the recommendation. Hold on a minute.
Sorry, Alison.
Okay. Just getting the English right on the motion here.
That's the only one we Yes, that's right. That's all wrong. All wrong, isn't it? We don't support 62 is the only one we don't support.
Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Melican, would you like to continue?
I'd like to, but I've forgotten where I am. I'd also like to add a point too, that while Council does not support motion 62 in its entirety, approve the Mayor to write to the Minister of Local Government in relation to continuing support for the construction of a new website and reporting platform that replaces and enhances the Know Your Council website. I say move.
Thank you. Now, do we have a seconder? Councillor McKern. As mover, do you wish to speak?
I'll just say a few things. Yeah, sorry about that confusion. We did have an in-depth discussion. The first three items, C3, 30 and 31, are all around reducing harm, and the officers advised that they didn't meet our current gambling strategy or prevention of harm strategy, but they are all about reducing harm. So as a council group, we felt we should include those and support those at the MAB meeting. And there was also a motion about your council website, which I must admit, when it was started, is criticised by many councils, and now it's disappeared. It's been they're criticising for taking it away, but the government has assured us that they will develop a new Know Your Council website, which will be bigger and better than the previous one. So we're just writing to the Minister to remind him that they made that obligation or that commitment, so we just hope that they will do that. But I'd also like to thank the officers, because this is the first time the MAB State Council motions have actually come to a council meeting. I know it's a practice that a lot of other councils do, whereas previously it was up to the delegate to vote how they felt on the day at the conference, which I thought I always did a good job at, but I must admit this is a much fairer and a much better way of conducting it, because the councillors are aware of the motions and we have the opportunity to look at every motion and make sure that it does align with our values and our strategies. And I think it's an excellent suggestion that came from staff that we go through this process, and I'm very pleased we have, and look forward to it continuing. So thank you for that, and I hope people support these slight amendments, because I think they are good amendments.
Thank you, Councillor. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I put up the 4 motions for support, and Councillor Melican has kindly read those out. He is our MAV rep and does a terrific job. It takes up a lot of time being the MAV rep, so very happy for him to be our representative there. But the reasons I put them up, firstly with regards to gambling, whilst we don't have an explicit policy on those motions, the 3 motions, and that's why the officers recommended not supporting them at this point in time, we do, however, have a gambling policy. And my understanding is that we Australians spend more money on gambling than any other country in the world. And unfortunately, it's gamblers in low-income households that spend the greater proportion of their household's total disposable income. So that said, Council does have a position on gambling. In fact, its policy position is Banyule City Council recognises the destructive impacts that gambling has on our community and is committed to minimising these harms and progressively reducing all forms of gambling within our city. So with that in mind, in principle support is, I feel, warranted, and so I'm happy to support the alternative. As for Know Your Council, it's a website that I have relied on a lot, terrific comparisons with other councils, and putting it up tonight is a reminder to state government to get on with the job of putting it back online. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Mayor. I just also like to thank the officers who reviewed all the MAV motions. Council continues to advocate on matters important to Banyule, considering the weight of each motion and where they sit on our priority list. We've got a lot in common with the broader sector, but we are not an island, and we have our own top priorities as well, so they can differ. I just wanted to highlight that we strongly support a lot of the motions, but particularly more infrastructure funding. The impacts of the windfall gains tax, boosting our recycling and electrification of community facilities, social and affordable housing in particular, and public transport improvement. So I think that we can all agree that these are top priorities in the sector, and we know that we have our own top, I guess, 5 or 10 or 20 that we are strongly supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak? No, I might sum up. I'd just like to thank all councillors on here this evening. Banyule City Council put 7 of the 98 submissions in, and if this goes through, Council will be supporting 90 of the 98 submissions to the peak body MAV to advocate on behalf of all councils across Victoria. So I look forward to seeing the outcome of that. This is the first time we've done this through this process, and I think it is far better than what we have done in the past. And if this is the cause for council's participation so much this time, I think I'm very much looking forward to all the future presentations on this as well. That said, I will now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to item 3.2, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Operations Report. There are no speakers to this item this evening. Councillors, there is an officer recommendation report before you set out on the agenda papers. I'm now calling for a mover. Councillor McKern. Seconder. Councillor De Pasquale. As mover, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation on this item. There's a number of items concerning the Banyule Cemeteries Trust this evening, and this will be the one that I'm happy to speak to. You'll recall that in December last year, Banyule Cemeteries resolved to cease having separate trust meetings. They used to be held in camera for councillors, and that the officers' reports on operations would be henceforth presented to council at ordinary meetings of council, and this way the reports are transparent to all our community. Some background points of interest though with regards to our cemetery parks. While the opportunity for burials and interments in Banyule is very limited, given Banyule is one of Melbourne's older residential areas, council does have 3 cemeteries under its management responsibility. Warringal Cemetery, which most of you would be aware of, on Upper Heidelberg Road. That's the main operational cemetery, but there are 2 more. Greensborough Cemetery near Greensborough Plaza, and that's about the size of a house block. Limited burials of grave sites acquired before 1978 are the only burials permitted there. And of course, Mr Mayor, the Hordern Street Cemetery, which is closed for burials and is managed as a memorial park. So the management of these 3 parks does fall under council's responsibility, and we follow that with interest. So I think that's about it for me. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Would the seconder like to speak? Any other councillor? No. Well, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We now move on to item number 3.3, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Financial Statement. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, there's an officer report before you. As set out in the agenda papers, I'm now calling for a mover of the motion.
I just have a question, Mayor.
Question, Councillor?
Yeah, just from reading the report, I just wanted to flag or ask whether there is a future opportunity at our cemeteries for the community to increase any purchases of burial sites in the future.
Put the question to our governance officer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and to you, Councillor Neely. For those that don't know, we do operate to the Cemeteries and Crematoria Act and the associated regulations, and that really does govern, I suppose, what we can do with our cemeteries and the management and the way forward. As Councillor McKern touched on, we have 3 cemeteries, Hordern, Warringal and Greensborough, and at the moment we don't have opportunities before us easily to consider the purchasing of new plots, and we acknowledge that we're somewhat landlocked. So recently we have attempted to appease this demand by building an interment wall to accommodate for some of these ashes and interment requirements. And we really do understand and appreciate the current operating situation. We're currently internally looking at some future management options around how we can support this community asset and the community need to accommodate new burials, and we'll be taking this all into consideration.
Any further questions? No. Do we have a mover? Councillor Neely, seconder. Councillor De Pasquale, would the mover like to speak? No. Seconder?
No, Mayor, it's quite, just quickly, it is quite probably unnerving for the community to be hearing about some cemetery trust issues. I mean, we go through this on a 3-4 monthly basis all the time, and we have for many, many years. So this is a new standard that we're bringing to the community. So no, nothing more to add other than to budget. We were looking at the Cemetery Trust was looking at to be in a less favourable position than it is. So the budget is looking better than it was previously perceived. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak? No. With that, I'll then put the motion. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to item 3.4, Banyule Cemeteries Trust fees, 2023-2024. There are no speakers to this item as well. Councillors, there's an officer report before you, as set out in the agenda papers. I am now calling for a motion. I have a mover, Councillor Neely, seconded by Councillor Champion. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Increasing costs have hit many industries, and the cemetery is no exception. As costs increase, it would be more viable for the cemetery to increase its costs as well. But this is unlikely to be approved by the Department of Health due to the current economic climate. So the search of records fee, I think, is appropriate as it takes time to locate stored records. I wanted to point out, though, that operating losses, however, will continue without any significant increase. That was the main body of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak? Any other councillor? Councillor Melican.
Yeah, what Councillor Neely said is exactly correct. The cemetery, the likelihood of generating much income is very reduced. The cemetery is basically full, and there's very little opportunities there's no opportunities to increase the land size. So it is a financial burden, but I think we need to flip that, because the cemetery is actually a resource. It's a community infrastructure. It's a record of our history. It's a place we should embrace. And if you look at a lot of cemeteries overseas, they actually use them as open space. People go into the cemetery to have their lunch, and some places put fences around our cemeteries. Ours has a fence around it, but it's open for people to walk through. And so I think we need to change our attitude a bit to cemeteries. They should be places of, it's our history. There's some very famous people buried in the Warringal Cemetery in particular, and the other two are basically churchyards when the churches disappeared. And there's some real history in there as well. If you look at the one in Hordern Street, the earlier pioneers are buried there. So it's something we should embrace, but there is the issue that they're full, very difficult to generate income, and they take a large amount of money to run. So this council's looking for opportunities to try and increase the income and trying to cut the costs. So we'll continue to do that, but I think we need to actually embrace our cemeteries as part of our community, part of our history and part of our heritage.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any other speakers to the item? Well, I might just reiterate that we do have a couple of magnificent cemeteries in Banyule. Warringal is a particularly big one that you can spend a whole day in, actually. I did with a couple of residents a little while back. Not quite a day, but there's a lot to see there, a lot of history. And also Hordern. It's a very unique little cemetery. If you can find that. If you can't, send me an email. With that, I'll now put a motion to all those in favour. I declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to the next item, 3.5, Banyule Cemeteries Trust Operations Budget 2023-2024 and 10-year budget forecast. There are no speakers on this item. Councillors?
Mayor, there is an alternate recommendation.
Okay, we have
I think if it's up there.
an amended recommendation. Councillor, would...
Unless there would like to be another mover, I'd be happy to move.
Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
That Council 1 approve the Banyule Cemeteries Trust Operations Budget 2023-2024, 2 approve the recommendation indexation of trust fees over $50 of 8% from 1st of July 2023. Point 3, note the 10-year budget forecast, and point 4, receive a report when the next quarterly financial update is provided on initiatives to optimise the financial performance of the Trust. So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McKern. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Mayor, this alternate recommendation was forwarded by Councillor Garotti, who's an apology this evening, but he has been in all our recent past trust meetings for the Cemeteries Trust. He's fully abreast of everything that is happening around the Trust, so I think the community can understand that he's part of this process too. Happy to move it on the Council's behalf. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder?
I too wish to acknowledge Councillor Garotti putting forward the alternative motions, and also to acknowledge what our fellow councillor Tom Melican has said. I think going forward, as our suburbs, particularly in the Heidelberg area, become denser with higher density urbanisation, we're going to see that areas of open space like Warringal Cemetery are used a lot more and a lot more frequently for passive recreation. I mean, you can go there currently and eat your lunch. There's some beautiful spaces in that area. We have a relative buried there, so we regularly go to the site. So just wanted to acknowledge, like Councillor Di Pasquale, that Councillor Garotti had a big hand in the alternative here, and to acknowledge some of the comments made by Councillor Melican previously, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? Well, I will now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We are now moving on to item 3.6, record for councillor meetings. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, there is an officer report before you as set out in the agenda papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Neely, seconded Councillor Champion. Councillor Neely, do you wish to speak? Councillor Champion? Any other councillor? No? I now then put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to item 5.1, Banyule Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee recommendation, ICLEI membership. There is one speaker to the item this evening. Michelle Jarvis will address council in person on behalf of Friends of Banyule and is speaking against the recommendation. Michelle, please approach the lectern. You have 2 minutes.
I might take a little bit longer because I think it's a really important issue, so I hope...
We have a 2-minute timeline. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm President of Friends of Banyule, and I'm also a long-standing member of Banyule Environmental and Climate Action Advisory Committee. I am against the motion to reject membership of ICLEI, and I am hoping that you will change your mind and support membership of ICLEI, which is a prestigious international group of long-standing, being commenced in 1990. I spoke with the report author today, and it's a person I respect and with whom I've worked for many years, and she assures me that no further council officer workload will be required, and that there was no further reporting workload resulting from reporting requirements. I think we need to be a member of ICLEI as it is international organisation, and that we would learn best practice responses to climate change, which Council has declared there is an emergency on climate change and which there is no argument. This is for a 12-month trial. It is not a long-term commitment. If we don't join the trial on ICLEI, how is it that we are going to know conclusively about its value or not? It also runs other programs that are in relation to biodiversity, and we are currently doing a biodiversity strategy, so that would be of tremendous value, and connections with international, the International Union for Conservation and Nature Conservation. So it's a resource in more than one way. The other thing is I'm incredibly disappointed that a unanimous decision of BCAC was rejected. Very discouraging for members of the group who volunteer their time, their expertise and their resources to work for the good of Banyule, the community and the environment. Quite frankly, it's a slap in the face for members of that committee. And I note...
Could you please sum up?
I would ask you, if this had come from the Reconciliation Advisory Committee, if a unanimous report request from that group, would it be rejected? And this is a committee that is the first advisory committee of Banyule.
Could you please
So it's
finish up now?
disrespect is astounding. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I believe there is an amendment.
I just have a
We have a question.
Yeah, just a question to one of the officers about, can we get any community benefits from ICLEI without membership?
With the Director for City Services, City Development, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Mayor. Yes, we can access a number of the programs that ICLEI runs in the absence of membership. There's also some financial benefits to being a member as well, in terms of discounted access to certain programs. One of the benefits of ICLEI is their sharing. They provide a lot of their information accessible on their website, and we do have access to that information in the normal course of our work. I think there's some other limited benefits that the membership would provide in terms of special access, if that's what you're referring to. For other things, but it tends to be limited back to council officers and access that they have to training and other sort of knowledge sharing rather than the community members.
Any further questions? No. All right, now I believe there is an alternative recommendation. Do we have a mover? Councillor McKern.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The alternative is that Council apply for membership to the ICLEI, the Local Government for Sustainability Oceania, for a 12-month trial period. 2, allocate funding for the membership fee of $3,510 in the 2023-24 budget. And 3, appoint Councillor Alida McKern as the Councillor Delegate for ICLEI, Local Government for Sustainability Oceania. And 4, receive a report on the 12-month trial evaluating the membership. Point 5 is part of the substantive motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Melican. As mover, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank our speaker for this evening. I thought she was very articulate and presented the strengths, the opportunities for joining ICLEI. I also think the speaker made a very good point of supporting recommendations put up by the advisory committees. Not that they're all supported, it's part of the councillor's job to assess these things individually and to consider all arguments for recommendations put up. However, BCAC hasn't put up that many recommendations in the past year, and this recommendation in particular was very well discussed in no fewer than 3 BCAC meetings. All members of BCAC took this very seriously. They understand that there were budget implications, even though $3,500 is not a big impost of a budget of over $180 million. This year is a particularly important year, and this is why we're suggesting the 12-month trial, because we have 2 important strategies, Mr Mayor, that would benefit by being paid members of ICLEI, and that is the biodiversity plan, which is currently being undertaken, and the housing strategy. I'll just point out that in terms of the pillars we're discussing for our housing strategy, biodiversity is one of the pillars of important consideration that has been put up and got a nod of acceptance by the officers. So support, advocacy and knowledge sharing, capacity building, access to resources and best practice models around the world on sustainable issues. This is probably one of the best times for us to consider this membership. I might also add, Mr Mayor, that other like councils are members of ICLEI. Manningham, Stonnington participates, as does Whittlesea, Yarra, Darebin, Melbourne, and the list goes on. 2,500 local government agencies around the world are represented by ICLEI. ICLEI is the only environmental organisation of its type that has direct contact and representation with the United Nations. It is a high-level strategic performance body, and I think it would benefit this council enormously to be part of what is a global village of environmental concerns.
Thank you, Councillor. Would the second like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you. I will also say, as Councillor McKern said, it's an international body. It's been going for 24 years, so last century it started. It is hosted actually by the City of Melbourne, and I just think the report talks about NAGA, the Northern Alliance of Greenhouse Action. That's a regional grouping that looks at regional issues. And then we have CASB, which basically focuses on the built form or how new dwellings are developed and then built, whereas ICLEI looks at the bigger picture from an international perspective. And I've attended many conferences because prior to NAGA, prior to CASB, prior to any of the real movement on climate change, it was ICLEI that pushed it. It was ICLEI that pushed it through local governments because they realised that they would take the lead very early. And I've attended many conferences, presentations and seminars run by ICLEI, and they've always been a very high standard and learned a lot. So I'd actually say that CASB and NAGA came out of people going to ICLEI presentations and realising how serious it was and how and this council, as it was being said, has declared a climate emergency. What are we doing about it? I know we're participating with CASB, I know we're participating with NAGA. What are we doing to look at the big pictures internationally? And yes, we can get access to a lot of their resources, but the organisation will be stronger if we join. There's 2,500 local government organisations who have already signed up. So I think for the small amount of money, considering the issue, the impact it's having on us now, the impact it will have on us, if we don't have that bigger picture international look and we don't get the best practice and if we don't gain a huge amount from being members of ICLEI, then I think we're wasting our time. So I'm very supportive of this and I hope my fellow councillors support it as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Mark de Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think this council is responsibly taking care of climate action. We have a corporate action plan, we have a community action plan, which we have invested very, very heavily in over the mark of $5 million. And I find it very difficult to accept that an international council will be delivering Banyule, the local communities of Banyule, with initiatives that will help us on the ground, that will help us with our environmental initiatives. I can see that there would be, how can there be an international standard that will help individual communities in various different countries, various different cities, various different parts of the community? It just doesn't work unless it's some form of one size fits all. And we go down a track, and then all of a sudden the community says, "Hey, this does not work in our community." Oh, but it's the world standard. Yes, in other countries possibly, other communities possibly, but it hasn't been tested and tried here. So we have to lump it because we've now made the decision to implement it in our local community. So I need to remind this council, I need to remind the community that we have been on the front foot with regards to initiatives and our environmental or the environmental challenges that we face, and the way that the officers have taken account of the path that we are on, both for the corporate part of emissions and the plan, and also the community. And sometimes we need to listen to the professionals. Sometimes we need to listen to the officers and follow their recommendations, because they're the ones who really understand where this organisation is going in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? A question from Councillor McKern to Councillor De Pasquale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor De Pasquale, you suggest that there is an international standard that we would need to follow by being members of ICLEI. I've read all the information with respect to ICLEI, what ICLEI provides, what it stands for, and nowhere have I seen that there is one international standard that we all have to perform to. Can you please describe where you have read or seen that there is an international standard that we must all subscribe to as members of ICLEI? Because indeed, my understanding is that it's about knowledge sharing of best practice models around the world. So can you please explain this international standard you refer to that we would have to follow?
Would you like to respond to that?
Sorry, Mayor, I think it's very inappropriate for councillors to be asking other councillors questions in the chamber of such a manner. I think it's unprofessional. I think we're having our debate. We're able to talk on the matter and we'll be making our decision. So I think it's a bit inappropriate. I'm not on being here answering questions with regards to any which way forward. I'm here to make a decision for my community with responsibility. And I think it's quite inappropriate and unprofessional that I'm asked questions by another councillor in a forum as if I'm being interrogated or questioned on some policy or way forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I might just throw that over to one of the officers to provide a response to Councillor McKern, perhaps. To Councillor, Director for City Development, maybe.
I guess I wouldn't be in a position to answer whether or not there's an international standard that we may wish to adopt or would be relevant, or whether such exists. I do know that our audit of our response to climate adaptation is done in accordance with an ISO standard that is an international standard. It's one of the only ones that I'm aware of that we has relevance perhaps to the work that we're doing. Beyond that, most standards that are applied at the local level would be either national or state standards that take into account our unique climate and geographical location.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other speakers to the item? Okay, well, Councillor McKern would like to sum up.
Yes, just to finish up on this point, that I'm not aware of any international standards, with all due respect, and in fact it would be just the opposite in my understanding, having spoken to the convener of ICLEI Oceania, having spoken to a number of other councils, having done some homework. The understanding I have learnt is that councils have actually shared a lot of knowledge, built their capacity, which has improved their own strategic outputs. And by sharing of information across councils within the country and across the globe, that it has actually improved their sustainability outcomes. So that is ultimately, I think, Mr Mayor, what we are hoping for is improved outcomes that are informed by best practice models around the world. And we do that by sharing knowledge. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, then I now put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion carried.
Division, Mayor.
Okay. Can I ask all councillors voting for the motion, please stand up. Councillor Melican, Councillor McKern, Councillor Castaldo and Councillor Neely. And I ask those against to please stand up. Councillor De Pasquale, Councillor Mitsonikos and Councillor Champion. I declare the motion carried. We are now moving on to item 6.1, 50 Chapman Street, Macleod, New Macleod Park Pavilion, P1234-2022. There are no speakers to this item this evening. Councillors, there is an officer report before you as set out in the agenda papers. I'm now calling for a motion. Councillor Melican, seconded by Councillor Neely. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
I'll just say a few words here. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, very important project. Been working on this for a very long time. A great club, the Macleod Junior Football Club and the Macleod Cricket Club both operate out of this building. Constantly gets flooded out because of the drainage issues from the railway line behind it. It is so badly in need of an upgrade. It has been for a long time, so I'm very pleased to see this go through. I spoke to the President today. There's over 300 children there that play in the Junior Football Club, and the Cricket Club has 6 teams, I believe. So both very successful clubs, both highly valued by their community, and are rooms that have over the number of children trying to use there. I was there the other Sunday when there was games going on and you can't move. It's impossible to even stand in front of the club rooms. It's so crowded. This will be a huge bonus to those 2 clubs and well overdue. And I'd also like to thank the state government for their contribution to this project as well. It's great that they've seen that need, and it'll be a great addition to 2 very, very good, hard-working, community-minded clubs. So very happy to support this tonight.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Well, just briefly, I think it's an exciting project that will be of great benefit to the community, expanding in size so that, it could last well into the future for everyone. So I look forward to it being done. Thank you.
Any other councillor? Councillor McKern?
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge Councillor Melican. I know he's put a lot of work into this project, and also I'd like to acknowledge the officers. Reading through the report, a lot of planning work has happened. So just want the officers to know, Mr Mayor, that it hasn't gone unnoticed.
Thank you. Any other councillors? No, well, I'll just take the opportunity. I think it's a very good looking building. If you haven't had a look at the attachments to the agenda this evening, it's worth having a look. It's a great building that will add to the very good stock of facilities we have in our sporting clubs. And it's in alignment with all of our council's future vision of a zero carbon future, all electric building. Some of the details haven't quite yet been resolved, but councillors will be on to that as well. So I look forward to this moving forward. And I now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We're now moving on to item 7.1, 19A Stewart Terrace, Macleod, proposed sale of land. There are no speakers to this item. Councillors, there is an officer report before you as set out on the papers. I'm now calling for a mover. Councillor Melican, seconder. Councillor Champion. Would the mover like to speak?
Oh, yes, a few words. There was no submissions to this process. The land has already been incorporated into the block. The person that will be purchasing it. There's been no disputes. They're basically treating it as their own land now. Have been for some time. So I think this is a good outcome. Tidies up those titles and it gives those people permanent ownership of the land they're already enjoying. So, yeah, happy to support this tonight.
Would the seconder like to speak? No? Any other councillor? No? I will then put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We are now moving on to item 10, general business. I believe we have a couple of councillors to speak to this. Deputy Mayor, Councillor McKern, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got two items that I'd like to speak to. One is the community meeting this Thursday, 11th of May, at Ivanhoe Library. It'll be downstairs in the U3A rooms, and it's an opportunity for our local residents to have their council-related questions answered. So we'll be starting at 6:15 p.m. for a bit of networking with fellow residents and tea and coffee provided, courtesy of yours truly. We look forward to seeing local residents and thank staff and any participating councillors who attend in advance for your willingness to give up your after-hours time for the benefit of our community's engagement. And Darebin Parklands Association is the second item. In 1973, the Rock Bear Park Conservation Society started was the initiation of the Darebin Parklands, Mr Mayor, and a campaign started that went all the way to State Premier Dick Hamer to secure funding for the future of 34 hectares of open spaces, urban bushland along the Darebin Creek in Ivanhoe and Alphington. So on the 30th of April, there was a huge celebration. The sun was shining for a change to mark the 50th year of the Darebin Parklands Association, which has now had a rebrand to Friends of Darebin Parklands, and the bushland being what it is. Now, to mark this occasion, Mr Mayor, I have 3 copies to give away of the book by Sarah Mirams, which details the history of the Darebin Parklands, how it escaped the bulldozers to be the valuable environmental and recreational resource it is today. So if you'd like a copy, I believe all our councillors do have a copy. They were handed to you at the start of this term. But for residents listening in or present in the gallery, if you'd like a copy, first in, best dressed, I've got 3 of them. Oops, I think all 3 of them are just about being taken, Mr Mayor. And that's it for me tonight. I hope not, Councillor Neely.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Neely next.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week there was a presentation by Thomas Mayo, an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander man, author of 4 books. He's got many roles, but the main one is that he was a signatory to the Uluru Statement from the Heart, and he's committed to information sharing around the statement. He spoke with Shelley Ware, who is a proud Indigenous woman radio and television presenter. You may remember her. And she's also on Council's Reconciliation Committee. And he spoke to her about the creation of the statement and what it means. So what it means to 250 delegates who signed the statement in 2017. He also spoke the words of the statement, which, you know, I've read before, but to hear it is just another experience. This was an opportunity for residents to ask questions during the information sharing exercise, and there was a lot of talk about healing, understanding and moving forwards with residents that I spoke to after the session. There were people there supporting. However, there was also residents there that were willing to learn more or interested to ask questions. And particularly to hear them from the perspective of someone like Thomas, who is heavily involved in this space, in the advocacy. So the way forward was focusing on Indigenous policy matters, including health, education, economic disadvantage, social matters, to include the voice. And on that, what residents took away from this was that they understood that the proposal is not a decision-making role. It's not a role with the power to veto legislation. It's just about including First Nations people to help determine policies affect their communities. So very worthwhile experience for community from residents who attended, and worth noting, particularly with everything going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other councillor wishes to raise an item? No, I will now. Rick Garotti asked for a condolence motion message about the passing of Barlin Menzies, a young person in New Hope Council program, and I will speak to that now. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the tragic passing of Barlin Menzies. Barlin was a 10-year-old at Greensborough College and was a beloved member of the Banyule community. Amongst a host of other things, he enjoyed such things as basketball. He was also an active participant in Banyule Youth Services New Hope program, where he volunteered his time to create community murals alongside his peers. Barlin's engaging personality, humour, dedication to his art and commitment to giving back to his community were admirable traits that will be remembered by all who knew him. His artistic contributions to Malahang Reserve Bike Hut, the Greensborough Skate Park, Jet Studio and Bansick Food Hub are a testament to his talent and passion for using art as a means of connecting with others. And on behalf of Banyule City Council, we extend our deepest sympathies to the Menzies family and Barlin's loved ones during this difficult time. We know that his passing is a great loss to the community, and we join you in mourning. May Barlin's memory live on through his art and his positive impact he had on the lives of those who knew him. We now move on to public questions. We have received 2 public questions. I now request Council's Director of Corporate Services, Mark Giulio, to read out the questions and relevant officers to read out Council's response. The public question will be included in the minutes of the meeting. The minutes will be available on our website later this week.
Thank you, Mayor. First question is from David Morris Gentle, representative of Banyule Residents for Integrity and Democracy in Government from Ivanhoe East. And the question reads, my question to Council is, why did Councillor Castaldo not support Councillor McKern's motion 2, to defer the decision to approve treetops until the Wurundjeri had been sufficiently consulted? And I refer the question to Kristen Fort, Governance Coordinator.
Thank you. In line with their democratic right, councillors can vote in any which way that they choose to on any items presented to Council in accordance with the governance rules of the day. It is acknowledged that Mr Gentle has asked this question of Councillor Castaldo before, and Councillor Castaldo has previously provided a response detailing his clear rationale to the vote. For further information on how each councillor voted on the item, Mr Gentle is encouraged to review the meeting from the 4th of October 2021, and just for clarity, that can be reviewed at the 34-minute mark and the 49-second mark and the 18-minute and 8-second timestamp mark on the live stream if you would like to go back and have a look at that. And the live stream link will be also included in the meeting minutes.
Next question is from an Ivanhoe East resident who has requested their name be withheld. And the question reads, from late 2019 through to April 2023, Banyule City Council spent tens or more, likely hundreds of thousands of dollars of ratepayers' funds on its attempt to get Amendment C107 treetops approved. These funds include costs of council's officers and of Maddox lawyers for the panel hearing. Meanwhile, Council's community consultation process yielded 192 submissions against the amendment and only 13 in favour. Lastly, Banyule City Council exists for the betterment of Banyule citizens. Question: why did Council pursue C107 treetops so vigorously given the massive vote against the project was provided by the community consultation process? I refer the question to Natasha Swan, Director of City Development.
Thank you. The amendment C107 underwent a standard statutory process, including public exhibition of the proposal, and the Minister for Planning appointed an independent planning panel to consider unresolved submissions made during the exhibition period. After considering the subsequent panel report recommendations, Council made its decision to adopt C107 only on the condition that the support of the Wurundjeri was obtained by the applicant Ecoline. Council was also guided by ongoing discussions with Wurundjeri, who indicated they were open to meeting with the proponent in response to the panel report. As soon as the final position of the Wurundjeri was confirmed, Council resolved to abandon the amendment.
Thank you. We now move on to the closure of meeting. In accordance with section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting will now be closed to members of the public for consideration of one confidential matter. Can I please have a councillor move? Councillor Mitsonikos, and second, Councillor Neely, to close the meeting. All those in favour? To hear item proposed sale of land, Heidelberg. This report has been designated as confidential pursuant to S31G, the Local Government Act 2020, as information within the report contains information relating to commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking, and relates to either trade secrets and, if released prematurely, could unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage. The next ordinary meeting of Council will be held on Monday the 29th of May 2023. I now close the meeting at 8:23. Thank you for all those in attendance and those online.